Crisis 1914 is a game of diplomatic tension in the summer of 1914. Each week is a turn, and the players control up to 5 different countries involved in the big mess that was coming down at the time. Up to, because of course you can play with fewer than 5 players, but come on, 5 is the real experience, so that you can see what Austria, Russia, Germany, England and France are going to do. There's a general board here where you will keep track of various things. You will use dice to collect victory points, called prestige points. You simply place them there as you collect. Look at me, I have 10 points, and then maybe I get another one. Now I am at 11. That's how that part works. You also use red dice to indicate tension that you're causing to other countries. As you can see, these displays have arrows indicating the country that is feeling a little bit antsy about their actions. If any country has a tension of 6 or more, they will lose the game. The general idea is this: you know this is probably going to happen, the war is going to happen, you want to put a lot of diplomatic pressure, have a lot of prestige when the war starts. Matter of fact, when the game is over, in one likely way it will be as if somebody starts the war. When the game is over, the player with the most prestige wins the game. However, the player who started the war loses the game automatically, so you're going to check prestige points only among the players who did not start the war. So that's a very interesting idea there. You want to have the most prestige, but not be seen as the one who starts the war. There's a belligerence track here, and there will be actions that will allow you to increase your belligerence level, and it will be connected with the tension. So if you have less belligerence than tension, when you take a belligerent action, you'll go there to tension. We'll look at the details later. Or not. That's the part of the design that, as I was reading the rulebook, felt a little bit fiddly and difficult to both grok and then to explain to people. As we started playing the game, I said, we're gonna learn it as we go. So I may or may not give you the full picture of it, because it may then feel more fiddly than it would be if you just play it. We have the initiative track. It tells us the order in which players go, and you have a token here as a reminder of whose turn it is. The board has printed on it the colors indicating the order in which we go at the beginning. And then there will be some actions later that will put you we'll move toward the bottom, or we'll move toward the top. And that means that later we will readjust the order to mirror those actions that will change the initiative. We have a score track, which is used to keep track of how many diplomatic pressure points, DPs, you're generating. The idea is we play one round, we play a round at a time. Each round represents a week. At the end of the round, we check how much diplomatic pressure we have placed. And being the one with the most diplomatic pressure, again, is often good. Being 14 or above is good also. Depending on where you are on this track, you will score different amounts of diplomatic pressure, of diplomatic prestige, based on the diplomatic pressure. However, if you see those numbers there, those +2, +1, +3, that is how much tension you generate. So Germany here, for example, will score some prestige points, if this is the situation at the end of the week, for being the player with the most diplomatic pressure, but they're also generating 2 tension points, and you will place those on their personal board like that. Oh, since we are here, as you can see, sometimes you generate tension in more than one country. So a country box may have multiple boxes for tension with arrows. That means that the one under the top will have usually at least half of what is above there. And the same for that one. So if this one was to go to 4, then it will flow down from Russia to France to A2, and then it will go down to Britain for A1, like so. And remember, 6 there or more, you lose the game because you started the war. So try not to cause too much tension, or maybe look at the cards in your hand and see that it may be worth causing some tension to get a good position in the prestige and then reduce it by playing cards later. There are several options here. Because ultimately this is a card-driven game. Each player has a personal board, such as this one, with a reminder of some of the unique things that they do, some cards that do not start in their deck, some special rules for them, and then everybody has a unique deck of cards. So like you see here, this is the one for Austria, for example. You will draw a hand of 3 cards at the beginning of the game, and then when it is the beginning of a week, everybody gets a random draw. That's it. You take a card and you draw it randomly and you place it in front of you to start a tableau. You will have a line of cards here that are either played from hand or drawn randomly. I like that represents the unpredictability of the political landscape, people doing things independent, individually that they did not expect. And so there is the element there. But you will also start with a hand of 3 cards, so that you can play later in the turn. The number that you see there on the left side of the card indicates the number of diplomatic pressure that is caused, let's reset the track, when the card is played. So, for example, during my random draw, I drew this card, and now I have 3 diplomatic pressure, and I placed the card there. If there are effects, I resolve them. Here, this card for now doesn't do anything other than sitting there. If at the end of the week I have 4 or more assertion cards in my tableau, I will double the prestige that I scored that week. Pretty nice, but in my experience, not particularly easy to pull off, which is good. If it was too easy, then it wouldn't be special. So after everybody gets their random draw, everybody starts taking turns, and during your turn, during the step, the step action turn, when it is your turn, you will take one action, exactly one action from from a list of actions that are indicated there, so you got the reminder. One action is, well, I can keep drawing blindly from the deck. You can always draw, generating again diplomatic pressure and possibly activating other effects. For example, the diplomatic pressure of assassination investigation will change depending on how many times it is in your tableau. And this is the first time it is on my tableau. Then I will put it there, and it's worth 2 diplomatic pressure. And I remember, and I put that marker there as a reminder, because if I was to play this card later in my tableau, then now it would mean 3 diplomatic pressure. Plus, also there are again effects that interact with possible sets, such as momentum. With 3+ momentum cards in your tableau, no opposing nation may take the actions to deliberate or renegotiate or reorganize. So one action you can do during your turn: draw blindly. Do what it says, possibly, and create that much diplomatic pressure. Isn't it nice? You just get to draw for free. Italians, why don't you want to go to war together with Austria? Anyways, that would cause no diplomatic pressure. But it's still clogging your tableau, because usually you can only have up to 7 cards in your tableau. So if you want to create a lot of diplomatic pressure, you gotta try to avoid these peaceful people who do not support you. So you can draw a card blindly from your deck, or you can simply play it from your hand, and I'll do that. Booyah, like that. So, draw it blindly, play from hand, but you also have other actions. Deliberate. You will discard a card from your hand. You can also only do it once per week, so you place a marker there after you do it. You discard a card, you draw 3, and then you choose 1 to place in your tableau and 2 to keep in hand. This card may mean 0, maybe 3 diplomatic pressure, depending on things here. And suppose I decide to play the Emperor. Boom. That's for the deliberate action. Discard 1, draw 3, play 1, keep 2. Then we have the reorganize. The cost to play this action is a card from hand. You got to discard it. But after that, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and you organize them in any order that you want. And again, since there is the action of drawing blindly, then it's really nice to draw blindly after you have placed them in the order that you know you want them to go. You can seize initiative, which is if you have more diplomatic pressure, same diplomatic pressure as the person on top of the initiative, then you can seize initiative, so altering the order of the turn. And you can also simply choose to pass. So after the initial random draw, players will alternate doing actions such as drawing cards from hand, very often pushing their luck to draw cards from the deck, hoping they can kind of win that fight there. They can get a lot of diplomatic pressure. They can form good sets here. But again, it's a mix of hand management and push your luck. The round will end when everybody passes or somebody has started a war. And if you haven't started the war, then you start the next round. There's some cleanup, but the general idea is pretty much this. Play cards, compete on that track to push enough, to create enough pressure, but not too much, and see if you start the war or not, and who starts it. And you continue like this week after week, and at the end of the game, the player with the most prestige wins the game. At its core, Crisis 1914 is a very simple push your luck game. And the idea is you're gonna play cards and use game effects to try to increase your prestige, getting as close as possible to where it scores well. Your pressure turns to prestige, but not too much. It's a push your luck game, and I have no problem with that. I like push your luck games. Push here is a game that I like very much. It's just called push. That's all that there is. Here, however, around the push your luck, you have more elements. You have a theme that feels captured quite in an interesting way, because the idea that the machine of state in this time and period transcends the decisions of any one person. There is a certain momentum, and the situation is ultimately unreadable. You can't exactly read what other people are doing. You see the outcome, how much pressure they're putting, and you want to be a little bit ahead of them, but you can't entirely see what even your state is doing with those random draws, with other game effects. They may put cards in your deck that you don't want. That's really nice. There is really a sense of the theme represented at a high level, not in huge detail, but mechanically, functionally, it does feel like we're in a crisis and we want to look tough, but we don't want to cause too much of a disaster. And ultimately may pay off, yes, to generate some tension and look a little bit like a bully, and then try to reduce that. Of course, the other players will try not to let you do that. They will try to keep you, be the one who starts the war. But it's a very nice little balance there. Again, there are games that are completely abstract, like Push that I showed you, that do push your luck. And here is a way in which you have a very well-known mechanic, and personally one that I enjoy very much, that also is functional to a theme. And the game in that sense feels very historical, very political. A lot of things in the cards, many of us didn't know what they were, but if you want to learn more, there is a source book here. And it can be indeed an opportunity to learn more about the politics of 1914. But the general idea, the interactions that you're gonna have, direct or mainly indirect, because again, I see the outcome of your actions, I need to decide. I can go ahead and win the prestige for having placed the most diplomatic pressure this round at the cost of some gargantuan and very dangerous tension, or should I wait until next turn and hope that then being the player with the most doesn't quite mean the same? And I like that. It's not a fixed amount. You need 20 points to score that much prestige. You need to put more pressure than the others. I like that relative game there. We were looking, one of the conditions to lose the game is if you play a certain card, and we were like, why the heck would you ever want to play? Yeah, you don't. But there are game effects that card doesn't start in your deck. There are game effects caused by other players' decisions that may put that in your deck. Now the blind draw becomes a lot more problematic. Now you are risking a lot more. Now you are or you're organizing, you are deliberating a lot more. So there are a lot of really cool ideas here to turn a simple push your luck engine into a nice thematic game of diplomacy. And ultimately, I would say impersonal momentum. Again, there is this idea that there is a larger machine that is moving, and you can't really control it. You can kind of direct it a little bit, but it's a very nice representation. So it's surprisingly thematic. I really enjoyed that. At the beginning, some aspects will feel a bit fiddly. The belligerence, I didn't even explain it because ultimately you won the game. Try learn it as you play it and read it to your friends as you do step by step. They'll get it. Back channel diplomacy places 2 diplomatic markers on the score track. We couldn't figure out how that really worked until then. You go through all the steps. So it may look fiddly, but it makes sense pretty quickly if you just breeze through the rule book and just start playing and tell your players we're going to figure it out as we go, because by the end of week 1 everybody's going to be on board and everybody's going to be hopefully a very good time. My group really enjoyed it. I think it really works well with 5 players, which is not a number that is super successful, but also you don't have a lot of downtime because gameplay is very often so quick. I'm going to draw from my deck. Can you put 2 diplomatic points for me on the track? That was my turn, and I had a good time because I was excited of the blind draw. I had a good time, but the game keeps moving pretty fast. So overall, I'm pretty happy with Crisis 1914. It is a fun game.